Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 33 of On the Flank. I am one of your hosts, John George, alongside Joe Kirkpatrick. Say hello, Joe.
Hey everybody.
And Joe, when it comes to analysis, we are on the flank. But also, a lot of Overwatch teams are on the flank now because they actually get to play DPS heroes, which is very entertaining to watch. I'll tell you that much. There were a lot
It's
of
true.
there's still a lot of goats, especially on some goats favored maps. But when you went down to some places like Gibraltar, when you went down to Junkertown and all these maps that have some Widowmaker action, have some just crazy, of course, Wrecking Ball 3 DPS comps. Just all hell broke loose. It felt like, which was
Pretty
fantastic.
much.
Yeah. But we're gonna switch up the order of things today because we have a bunch of pickups from last week that we missed out on the episode that, of course, happened right after we recorded the podcast, per usual. And it would be weird to talk about those like after we already have talked about them when we recap the week. So we're gonna go through news and then we'll recap the week because most of the news is pretty old. The first piece of news, though, Joe, Baby Bay to Atlanta. Um, this is a perfect trade, right? Like Baby Bay, he's not going to have any playing time on San Francisco. His personality fits Atlanta perfectly, right?
Pretty much. I mean, and for a team that has four DPS players, that hasn't hardly used, like we said, hasn't used Baby Bay basically at all, so far this season. San Francisco, I'm sure would love to drop him, and get some money out of it too from Atlanta. But Atlanta also definitely needed a DPS player, from last week when Defran retired. Obviously, had a hole going into stage two that then Baby Bay came in and filled like immediately. He played on Atlanta's first match this week against Boston, and was doing pretty well, especially for having just transferred.
Yes. Yeah, he looked pretty good, especially in those first two games. It was a reverse sweep, of course, which you'll get used to with Boston this week. But yeah, he definitely was looking pretty good. He played against London too. That match was not as good. Uh,
Yeah.
Another player that they picked up was FRD, who also saw significant playing time to the disdain of everybody in the league. Everyone wants to see Daco play. They don't want to see FRD play anymore, especially after an unsuccessful league for the Atlanta Reign. But it's interesting. We got these two pickups this week by Atlanta, and they're both featuring them heavily, despite them just joining the team. And they have options on the bench, Joe. What do you think about? I mean, FRD, Baby Bay, they're talented people. But was that the best choice to immediately throw these guys in?
Yeah, it's interesting. On the one hand, it's early in the stage. Maybe Atlanta was sort of just like looking to test them out a little bit, in this, beginning of the stage, to see exactly what they're looking at, and with a 2-7 map differential over two maps or over two matches, maybe that wasn't the best decision, um, but yeah, I don't know. It's whether the choice to play, Baby Bay and FRD this week was like a competitive decision, or whether it was just sort of a organizational decision. If nothing else, making some statement about it. Hey, we've got players, and here's what they look like, and here's the playing that can be valuable. Again, as and being an organization and sharing with your fans, but um, yeah, it was definitely not super helpful for Atlanta fans looking for some wins in this first week.
Yeah. And everyone's mainly just mad about Dako, who's known as one of the best Korean contenders, flex tanks, and he's barely seen action out there on the Atlanta Reign. So everyone's confused about that, I guess. Um, be nice to see him. Nice to see if he can live up to that hype. Apparently he isn't in scrims because he's not playing. But yeah, we move on to some coach news. Coach Damon from Paris Eternal has been dropped by Paris Eternal as the head coach already. They already said bye to him. That stage one was so bad they said goodbye, and now he is immediately on another team. Luckily, he's coaching. He's a tank coach for Dallas Fuel, I believe.
Yeah, yeah, that was the title.
Joe, was it time to clean house already for Paris? Is this a good move?
I mean, it sounds some of the posts they made, made it sound like partly it was a choice by Taman that
Hmm.
he would rather go over to Dallas than Paris, but yeah, I mean, with sure Paris had a disappointing first stage, but yeah, I don't know if it was so much of a house cleaning move as just trying to see what else is going on. I mean, because Kai Kai's still at Paris, Feifei is now head coach at Paris. They've got some, there's definitely some talent there, and Paris going 1-1 last week. There's with two really one-sided matches either way, but this is so there's definitely some progress to be made for Paris, but they're looking okay, I think so far. It's just a matter of how this now that their coaching stuff is shaken down.
Yeah, how that pans out and how they adapt to that. But yeah, it should be interesting for Paris making some changes. Hopefully, I know they want to be elite. They want to be one of the bests. I mean, who doesn't? But that they expect to be the best. It seems. Next, a huge trade. This dropped literally right after we recorded our podcast. Note to Boston, RCK to Boston, Note to Dallas. And this is a huge trade because Note was he was not only the franchise player of Boston, but it seemed like one of the top guys in the league that would always be on Boston, always be on their team. He seemed like a consistent player, very good flex tank who's just consistent in his role.
Yeah, he ends Kellex, and now just Kellex is the last member of the original Boston Uprising squad who's still there.
Yeah.
Everybody else is new, from the beginning of season one.
Yeah, that's crazy. I believe it was Color Hex in an interview after this week saying, he's very honest in interviews, just going in depth on the differences between Note and RCK and how they're almost completely different flex players, in that RCK is he's an in-game leader trying to sort of create new strategies on the fly, confuse the other team, and do crazy things, whereas Note is a very consistent, does exactly what he needs to do, and will always be doing sort of the same thing, but he will be doing it in a great way, in a perfect way. So they're sort of two play styles completely, but you could totally see the difference in Boston's play, where they were sometimes they were pushing up further than usual. Sometimes they were staying back like they would with Note. It was really sort of maybe what Boston needed to sort of be sort of attack more often, confuse the other team, and now they have a killer Sombra as well, obviously.
Yeah, and I mean, it certainly worked out successfully for him.
Yeah, exactly.
This week.
And we haven't. I feel like Note will work out for Dallas too. We haven't. Dallas and Houston both did not play this week. They got their bye weeks early in the stage, and it's because of that Dallas weekend that we're gonna get. But yeah, we didn't get to see Note on Dallas yet. We will this week. But I think both trades will. I think the trade will be good for both teams. I think both of these players are very good. Um, I think it's a pretty even trade. Do you agree, Joe, or do you think it was one sided at all?
I think it works. Yeah. I mean, Notes in particular wasn't seeing tons of playtime for Boston over people like Axiom or who else was playing Diva for them? Uh, I don't know, but not Note very often in the first stage. But yeah, so hopefully we get a little bit more action here with Dallas this next week. And other than that, I think it is going to be successful. Hopefully for both teams, because that's the goal. And we actually don't see very many player for player trades in Overwatch League, so that's kind of cool,
Yeah,
just from an observer standpoint.
I love that. I love player trades. Player money is boring. Boring for me. We have more Dallas news. Effect has retired. He came out. He made a long post. He is retired. To be expected, I think. I mean, he barely saw play in the first stage. I know we all know he's had his troubles in the past, and whatever's best for his mental health, I think, in this situation, is what is needed for Effect. It's upsetting. Maybe one day we can get him back in the league when he's gone through all this and hopefully feeling better, because he's a fantastic tracer player, fantastic DPS player. But yeah, Effect retiring.
He wrote a lot about some of these things he was going through too, and just saying that it's not productive, not helpful for him to try to be an Overwatch League player, in the middle of all that. But yeah, amazing at what he does. And he's an asset for Dallas that unfortunately they won't have now. But obviously all the best to him that he's um, so he got to put himself first, over his team or over his career, all that. So
Yeah,
it'll be good for him, hopefully.
yeah, I hope so. Um, On to another Boston signing here. They signed Persia the same day they got RCK. So this one I feel like kind of flew under the radar. They signed a player named Persia. He's from Talent Esports, which is part of Contenders Pacific. So this one is another relatively unknown player that Huck could have just snatched from somewhere. And so far he's been a hell of a guy at scouting talents. So, Joe, you know nothing about this player either, right? I've never heard of this guy.
Yeah. He's a flex support, I think.
Yes,
So
Zenyatta
come in and
Moira, and Liquipedia
play.
even says he can play Genji.
Oh, well, there you go. You can come in and rotate with Neko, I guess is the plan.
Yeah. I hope we can see what he does. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. His real name is Zion Yang. So if you're a college basketball fan, maybe he is the Zion Williamson of Overwatch League, and we just don't know.
Okay.
Um,
Means he's secretly sponsored without anybody knowing about it.
yes, exactly.
That's a thing, right?
Yes. Um, oh, you said Neko. You meant Aim God. That's why I was confused. Neko's on Toronto now.
Right, because
Yeah.
that's not a like I don't know why I keep getting like Boston and Toronto
Because there's a
confused today.
lot of old Toronto. There's a lot of old Boston players on Toronto. It's confusing, I know.
I guess.
Yeah. God, yeah. Toronto. They're basically the same, you know. Boston had Toronto Esports at one point as their contenders team.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
They're
Um,
pretty close geographically for what that's worth.
exactly. Speaking of Toronto, that's a perfect segue, Joe, into two things that happened to them. First of all, Stellar retired. Um, I don't think he play at all.
Stage one, I assume he did. I don't know why he wouldn't have. I don't know.
Yeah. I just don't remember him playing at all. for some reason.
Let me see.
That's mainly why. Um,
It'll say on the
yeah,
website.
he probably did. He probably did. Um,
Oh, he's no longer on the website.
oh,
So,
well, that would make sense because he is retired.
yeah.
But yeah, this is leading into a pickup for Toronto here because they picked up a DPS player to replace him, and that is I'm 37. That's probably one of the most remarkable pickup stories ever because the timeline for I'm 37 is quite ridiculous if you haven't heard yet. Um, Basically, March 14th, he joined an open division team called Wave Check, uh, for which he then 10 days later, on March 24th, got picked up by contenders team Second Wind. So immediately into contenders on March 24th. And then April 1st, April Fool's Day, he departed Second Wind to join the Overwatch League 7 days later. So what is that? 17 days into this guy's professional Overwatch career, and he is already on the Toronto Defiant, starting, may I add, and playing almost every map for this team, which is absolutely crazy. I,
Yeah.
it's quite crazy. I haven't seen this much trivia on like a Wikipedia page either, especially for a player who just joined the league. I guess they learned a lot about him. But yeah, his first career win as a player on Second Wind was within 3 days of practice, which is crazy. He's come out of nowhere, and all of a sudden he's there in the league. Were you impressed by his play, Joe?
I think so. Yeah. He's definitely gonna be able to hold his own against people like or hold his own with teammates like Asher or Ivy. We also saw Asher for the first time
Mm-hmm.
for Toronto this week. Um, but yeah, it's gonna be good. He's made a splash there in that first day against Washington. The post match interview with Danny. If you go back and look at that, when I think if I remember right, that was like set up that he'd been or that he was like pranking, uh, yeah, pranking Danny, the translator, because he has really good English, and so he was he gave his interview in English and all that. So, but yeah, it's making a splash, definitely for Toronto fans. Same sort of thing I was talking about for Atlanta. That to have him there, the giant star power that he's sort of exploded into being, and being able to play him and show him off, I think uh, is going to be successful. I think, or going to be valuable for this team off this first week.
Yeah. But he is not 37, just to let you guys know.
Uh,
He is 19 years old. I wish he was 37. That would be even cooler. Just this 37-year-old from who's been living in Canada is just like, I'm pretty good at Overwatch, and everyone's just picking him up. I would love to see one day a 37-year-old in Overwatch League. But yeah, we move on to the last piece of news, which is actually pretty big news, and this happened like after day one of the stage 2 Overwatch League, and I think it was it was pretty shocking. Florida was like, "Hey, we're going to commit to an all-Korean roster, and they're not even going to bench their non-Korean players. They're just going to drop them." To Vic, Apply, McGravy. McGravy looking good towards the end of the last stage too, and they just said, "Nah, we want all Korean." Um, First, according to Joe here on the rundown, first Owl team to lose all its season 1 stage 1 roster,
yeah,
even
somebody on
before
Reddit did a
Shanghai.
yeah, yeah. Somebody on Reddit did a rundown of all that, and so yeah, like Kellex is the only one left from Boston, but yeah, Florida is the first one to completely drop it.
Yeah, I mean they're probably the least successful franchise so far in the Overwatch League, especially since Shanghai's looking better now. Um,
Yeah.
if you, I mean, last year it's obviously Shanghai, but if you include what we have so far of season two, Florida still is garbage, and Shanghai has some actual talent now. Um, so
And sort of a weird management decision too, just in terms of, that um, lots of the Florida administration has been back and forth about, oh, we're not really going to try to go, for an all Korean roster. That's not, like the only option that we see, and all this until, finally deciding, that is what we're going to do.
yeah,
Sort of, in a press release that didn't mention, any of their, um, I guess both North American and European, players by name or anything. It's just weird. Um, there was an exchange. I'm trying to remember. I think this was with Kate, the GM for Washington Justice, was talking about Florida. Um, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Doing some trash talk, and then Hex's response was, "Yeah, well, come back when you have more than one win." And then Hex and Kate got in a Twitter feud, so that was fun.
yeah, yeah. I saw that.
But
Yeah, I don't know. Just an interesting. I mean, Florida's got to do something, right? I don't know. So,
you would think,
I mean, you can make an all Korean roster that's bad. Is the issue? It's not. That's not like the answer. Is like just put 6 Koreans out there and we win, right? Like you have to put 6 Koreans who are good at Overwatch in there. um,
yeah,
so
and we're good at Overwatch together.
yes,
That's
exactly.
the other thing.
Um, yeah, they have some talent, especially Saya player, but some of these players are not the best together. Um, and they ended up looking better this week, but still going 0-2. We'll get into that more right now. Actually, we're gonna recap the week finally. What you guys have been waiting for, and I was so excited going into this week. And the first match was such a disappointment that I was like, "Oh no, is this what's gonna happen this week? Am I just gonna be so disappointed and sad?" But then we got a reverse sweep the next game by Boston. Do you want to talk about Philly, New York at all? I mean, New York.
Yeah, I mean,
New
this
York's
is not
good.
much to say. Yeah, New York is good, sure enough. I had called that it was possible at least for Philly to come in and win. Obviously, that didn't happen. They did show us lots of fun stuff, though.
Yeah,
This very first match of the week was the first time we saw Paris, so that was kind of cool.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, I think that's why I was
they,
disappointed was because Philly was the one who was showing non-goats, and New York was pretty much all goats, and New York was just destroying them. So it was like, oh God, is goats just this good? But it turns out, I mean, I forgot to take into account New York's just really good.
eh. But yeah, so our first week or our first look at the stage two meta and all that, but no, it wasn't a very exciting match. You're right.
Um, it was cool to see that Philly was trying that stuff out, but they were miserably failing at trying that stuff out. So it was scary at the same time. You're like, oh no, are these strategies really just bad? But Philly just didn't look good at all either. Luckily, they got a win later in the week, or else we might be talking lots of crap about this team right now. But I am a little down on them.
Yeah.
As a Philly fan, are you worried, Joe?
I mean, we definitely expected, better than a 4-0 for sure. To come back later in the weekend and beat Florida, who we lost to earlier, is something. But, beating Florida 3-1 is only so much of a comfort.
Yeah, I agree. Philly, they're going down on my power rankings list in my head a little bit as time goes on here. But they have talent, and I trust that they can fix their issues. Boston, the first of two reverse sweeps this week, and they did just come off a reverse sweep against Dallas to end the last stage. If you don't include stage playoffs, because they lost in stage playoffs to Vancouver. But they reverse sweep Dallas, and now they reverse sweeped Atlanta, who brought up Baby Bay, and Baby Bay I think looked pretty good out there. I don't think as good as DeFran, but I think he looked pretty good. And Boston brought out RCK, who I think specifically this match was the MVP for Boston. He looked really good, and I don't think with note they could have reverse swept here. Honestly, RCK was doing super well.
Yeah.
Boston, they're they're slowly slowly climbing the standings. I don't know if you've looked at the standings lately, Joe, but
Yeah, I mean, 2 wins definitely helps. They're sitting at what, sixth overall in the stage, but all the way up to fifth in the league.
yeah, fifth overall, and this is a team people once again power ranked in like the bottom four, bottom five of this league. I power rank them lower than I probably should have at like 12th or 13th or something, but that's still way higher than most people had them. I think this if this doesn't secure that if Boston like wipes their team out once again next year and completely like starts anew just like they did this year, I think if Boston does that, that people are people are finally not going to doubt them.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're 6-3 now. After this one, they were 5-3. Another reverse sweep. I mean, I don't know what it is about the first two games of series, but they look like a completely different team on the last three maps every time.
And Hangzhou week 2, London week 3, and also Vancouver. But
Yeah,
definitely potentially some more wins coming their way too.
yeah, we'll see. Um, we move on to LA Gladiators back in play for the first time since Stage 1, Week 4. It's been a while. I think maybe Shanghai too. Did Shanghai play Week 5?
I don't know.
No, they did not. So yeah,
Oh,
both of these teams, first time we saw them in at like 3 weeks. So it was great to see them both back on stage, and the Gladiators pull it out 3-1. And you just hate to see this sort of schedule for Shanghai this week, facing New York and LA Gladiators. Unfortunately, making their record look a lot worse than I think what their talent shows. Because they played some of these maps real close with the Gladiators. Some weren't as close. Some pretty close. So it was overall a good match. LA Gladiators after this week. I think these guys are the real deal. They're good. I think they're
for sure.
I think they're finally elite.
Yeah, and particularly the one map that Shanghai did take off at LA Gladiators. I'll highlight. DM on Widowmaker. They played Busan was you know um, pretty much dominating. Surefour's Widow, particularly Mecha Base, I know on that map, but still it's cool to see. Because DM on Widow we haven't gotten to see tons of yet, but even the Widowmaker 1v1 champion of last season,
Couldn't
uh, you
be.
know, having some troubles up against him.
Yeah, I think Surefour's been having some troubles overall this season too, though. Not playing up to my expectations for him, and he's been on the bench a majority of the time as well. So, and also LA apparently just hates winning the first map. They also got 2-0'd by Seoul later in the week on their first map. And as a Gladiator fan, I recall them often losing the first map. They really don't like it. They don't like starting out strong. But it's fine because they always end up winning the second map usually, and keeping it tied 1-1 at the half is what I've noticed as a Gladiator fan. Then we move on to Paris, 4-0 in Guangzhou, and after this week, I am embarrassed to have Guangzhou as my number 7 in my power rankings. I don't know what I was thinking on that one. Um, but yeah, Paris coming out 4-0 in Guangzhou, and they got to play a lot of DPS heroes, and you got to see Shadowburn on some Genji this week and stuff like that. Um, what are you thinking about Paris here in stage 2 so far, Joe?
it's sort of interesting. We thought, like you said, we thought Guangzhou was going to be a better DPS team than they showed us. I think in this series, it's safe to say it was. I guess not the only one they played this week. They also lost to San Francisco, um, but yeah, definitely were not performing the way we thought um, they'd be here against Paris. Um, and then of course Paris lost another decisive match later, uh, but yeah, not close really on Oasis or on Paris, which the map, not the team in this case. But and then at least a little bit closer there in the some of the escort type maps. But um, yeah, Paris looking really nice. Shadowburn's Pharah is just good. I still really like it. It's season one when he was playing for Philly, that was like one of the reasons I liked Philly was Shadowburn's Pharah, and it's still really good. But um, yeah, I don't know. This one rather than their other match is the type of match that we want to see off of Paris, or it's certainly the type of match that Paris wants to see off of Paris.
Yes. And I want to take this opportunity. Guangzhou having some team issues, Hangzhou having some team issues. I just want to talk about expansion teams because they started out fantastic, right? Expansion teams were doing super well in goats. Were looking like they were the real deal. And I just want to take a look at the regular season standings now. And in the top eight, we only have two expansion teams where I feel like we had a lot more going into stage one. Toronto and Vancouver are the only ones left in the top eight as London starts to pick up their pace, as Gladiators finally start to get wins under their belt. Um, and of course, you have Boston, Philly, Shock, all especially Boston rising in the standings lately. And sort of Toronto has had to make some moves because of some retirements. You got Atlanta having DeFran retire, and them dropping out of the top eight completely over there. Um, the only expansion team I really see on the rise is, of course, Vancouver. They're always on the rise. But Chengdu, right? Who looked really good this week and
Yeah,
looked like a top team, honestly.
coming up into um, just made 10th this week with their fifth win.
Yeah, but overall, how are things? What is the forecast for the expansion teams? You think, Joe? Like all of them are going through some stuff right now. It seems like and performing a little worse than everyone thought they would, having some cohesion issues when it comes to Hangzhou, Guangzhou, um, and of course you have Paris who greatly underperformed, Atlanta, all these teams who, and I think we both agreed that Toronto's not as good as their record shows. Um, what's the forecast for these expansion teams? Are they gonna when are they gonna finally become cohesive groups that can rise back up in the standings here?
Yeah, it's an interesting, interesting, sort of implication there that, as the season goes on, they're sort of starting what flag behind is that a word?
Yeah.
That they're getting tired and they're, running out of maybe the stamina that some of these other more experienced teams might have. Which I mean that makes possible. Even season one was a really long season, and the way they've got this um, season two set up, it's on a calendar, it's even longer. Um, yes, I think there could be some value to that for sure. Hopefully, the mid-season break, hopefully gives some people a little bit of time to sort of gather things together again. But yeah, I don't know. I think it is definitely true that lots of these expansion teams can be um, can be contenders. We saw that in stage one. I don't think we have any reason to see that as an outlier. But yeah, in the meantime, they're trying to make sure they can actually build up the endurance to get through the whole season, rather than the race to stage playoffs where we saw a good amount of these expansion teams.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it is it could possibly be some fatigue. We're getting further as we get further in the season. Maybe they're getting a little bit more tired because all these expansion teams do have pure talent, but they don't have talent who are obviously experienced in Overwatch League as much as the teams that were in there last year. Obviously, they're used to the long, grueling season, and this is even less of a grueling season, according to Nate Nancer and the changes they made, because a lot of them were made in order to make it less grueling. So, yeah, I mean, it's just going to take some experience for these teams, and it's especially, I mean, some teams it's just going to take getting used to. For some teams, they just got to learn how to be a cohesive unit, especially Hangzhou, Guangzhou. They both have tons of talent, which is unfortunate that they're underperforming here. But let's move on. We're deep into this podcast, so I'm just going to try to skim through the rest of this and talk about some teams that we haven't talked about yet. London Spitfire.
It works.
We mentioned them. I just mentioned them a little bit. That they're looking a little better. They picked up 2 wins this week, Joe. One against the Mayhem in a match that I think I messaged you and I was like, London sucks at goats. This is embarrassing to watch. Because they played very close with the Florida Mayhem.
Yeah, and it was another situation they sort of pulling things out better at the end, but yeah, it didn't look super. They didn't rise very far above Florida for sure in this match.
Yes, but then they rose very far above Atlanta Reign later in the week and 4-0'd them. A nice little sweep. I think they looked a lot better here. And this just proves they look bad at times, but I think this just proves that they have so much potential as a team, and obviously they won the championship that last year. If things are bad, things can always be good for this
Absolutely.
roster.
Yeah, and if you're this isn't the series that I picked this week to go back and rewatch, but if you are a Devo player, go back and rewatch this London versus Atlanta series, just because I think Fury had 5 grav eats in like 2 maps.
He was hungry.
It was just amazing against Babyface Zarya, which was not looking super great, but yeah, that was super impressive.
Yep, Baby Bay a little shaky, but yeah, very hungry boy. We'll move on here to Toronto, who we both ranked pretty low in our power rankings, I believe, Joe. I had them like 14th. I can't remember where you had them. We had them super low compared to their record, especially. They came out and they beat Washington. Obviously, nothing special to do that. But I think the key match we want to talk about here for Toronto is Boston versus Toronto, where they came out 2-0, which everybody does against Boston apparently, and then got reverse swept. And Boston looked pretty good, especially on Rialto holding Toronto to 0 points there. I mean, was this game more of a Toronto throw or a Boston comeback? Are you worried about Toronto after this?
Yeah, no, I think probably this was more Boston just being really good. I mean, this is a team that's gotten now 3 reverse sweeps in a row. That's a league record. That they're showing us what they're about. And like I said, sort of looking ahead, they've got a couple more wins, potentially coming in this stage already. But yeah, Boston looking really. Really solid against, again, a Toronto team that's, had a couple roster changes that they're still trying to feel out. But even then, it was a good match for sure.
Yeah, Toronto's next match against Dallas. That should be a very interesting one. And I think that's a big test for Toronto, especially for us too, to figure out if they are actually the real deal or not, because I think we both think they aren't. So it'll be interesting to see how they match up to Dallas, because Dallas is sort of middle of the pack team right now. So if they're able to stop them, then yeah, I feel like they would be the real deal. But then again, Dallas either gets stomped or it's a good game. They really like to get 0-4'd, which is not good for getting into stage playoffs apparently.
Yeah.
Well, so we haven't talked about, of course, Chengdu quite yet. But I think we should talk about LA Gladiators Seoul Dynasty a little bit because this is the first match where that Fisher played against one of his old teams and hasn't won. He, I didn't know that was I did not know that he is undefeated against his old teams. London, he has never lost to London. Um, he has now lost to Gladiators. This was the first time. When it went to map 5, I was like, "Oh god, Fisher's just gonna pull it out here. He just cannot lose to his old teams." But how did the Gladiators do it, Joe? How did they do this?
Yeah, I watched this match, and actually, this is the match that I've picked that you should go rewatch if you can. Um, but yeah, it was really back and forth. As far as that goes, Seoul picking up Oasis 2-0, but then Gladiators come back with two, and Seoul with one, and then Gladiators taking Lijiang at the end. Yeah, back and forth a lot, and we saw lots of different types of strategies too. Everything from the Bastion and that sort of thing. LA Gladiators had a really really solid point B defense on Paris against Seoul that doesn't always happen. Usually point B is pretty attacker favored, all the way down to Kings Row and Gibraltar. They went to I guess 4 rounds technically, two for each. But yeah, it was exciting, pretty back and forth. Like I said, this is like my match of the week. After having seen it, yeah, that it was cool, and yeah, sure enough, Fisher not quite able to to carry Seoul past this one.
Yeah, unfortunately. But both of these teams, I think, are great teams. I definitely think they could be top teams at the end of this. Both of them have. I mean, Seoul has looked a little bit flaky here and there, but Gladiators are just looking so strong. Like they're clearly streaking. They're clearly having a nice little win streak here. That's just looking really good for them. What's the Gladiators schedule looking like here?
Let's see.
They face Valiant and Guangzhou next week, so two pretty easy teams. They could easily continue the win streak. Then they face the
Florida
Mayhem.
and Chengdu, and then Boston in week
Yeah.
5.
Okay, so this stage is not that hard, especially compared to last stage, which was super tough, and finishing 3 and 4 for Gladiators was not bad at all.
It's true.
Um, so Gladiators looking a lot better lately. So this team, I would very much expect them to see in stage playoffs this stage, especially after this really good win against Seoul. I think this Seoul was their hardest game, if not Chengdu. This
Off the stage. Yeah,
stage.
yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah. So this is a huge win for them. And let's move on before I go to Chengdu, because that's my game to rewatch. I want to just talk about Vancouver real quick and their game against Hangzhou, because specifically, Joe, did you watch Kings Row?
I don't believe so. No, not from this series.
Because they once again pulled it out, Joe. Hangzhou once again said, "Oh, like we'll easily take all 3 points here on Kings Row with like 3 minutes to spare," which is rare at Kings Row, And Vancouver says, "Okay, we'll break another record. We'll break another record," and just clears through the map like 5 minutes to spare. Insane. Once again, Vancouver just if Vancouver flounders on defense, you can never ever like expect them to not just absolutely stomp them on offense. Like that's just what's gonna happen. This team is insane. I can't believe this team. Yeah, Hangzhou looking just disjointed. As I just wanted to bring up Kings Row because Vancouver is. It's just crazy how often they on defense they're just like they give up 3 points. It feels like they're almost doing it on purpose at this point. They're just like, yeah, we suck at defense. I don't care. And then they're like, and then they just easily sweep through the map. It's fun to watch.
Yeah,
But let's move on to
and lots of 4-0s on Sunday, just in general.
Yeah. I thought we were gonna get four, but Chengdu failed me. Um, Speaking of Chengdu, they did 4-0 Paris Eternal after Paris Eternal 4-0 Guangzhou, which doesn't seem like it bodes well for Guangzhou at all. But I think me and Joe both talked about this in our power rankings. I think Chengdu's are the real deal this stage. Um, the meta is finally shifting towards their play style. I think everyone had this team like bottom three, but they looked really good against Justice. They looked really, really good against Paris, um, and they have so much fun while doing it. You mentioned to me, Joe, 27 heroes played against in that Justice game, not just Chengdu, both between
Yeah.
Washington and Chengdu. But that's a record, obviously. 27 heroes, that's crazy. Uh, this team just has so much fun, and they win, and that's game changing because every other team's like, oh, let's follow the meta. They're like meta zombies, you know, and that's what I describe almost every team in Overwatch League to be. Like they have to follow the meta, and there's no like they'll throw in like a new play or a new way to attack every once in a while. But Chengdu just comes out with a new strategy every time for every single map and makes every single attack, every single moment so entertaining because you have no clue what they're going to be doing.
And they know how to successfully do what they're trying to do too. They're really confident in these weird things that they pull off.
It makes me wonder. Do you think once, I mean, figuring out Chengdu is a hard thing to do, but do you think as the season goes on, teams do start to figure out Chengdu and their zany play style, and that hurts them in the end? Do you see that at all?
Yeah, I mean, the more they play, the more data and footage and all that these opponents have. I mean, we still haven't seen two Chengdu players. They're still I guess not MIA, but in fact, I think I saw that Young Shalong is now either here or on his way um, to the U.S. Out of visa help. But yeah, I think there's definitely the more time we see Chengdu, the more data points we'll have. But it takes a special kind of preparation, I think, to be prepared either to beat them at their own game, which is super difficult, or to just be so good at what you do that off meta actually has a sacrifice.
Yes. Chengdu. They play Shanghai next week, but I'm looking forward to that Gladiators matchup because I think that is make or break for Chung. That's when we figure out is this team elite or not. Because I think they possibly could be elite. Honestly, they're looking really good and they have a lot of talent. Um, and there's finally a Chinese roster that is working out super well, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Especially since Guangzhou, Hangzhou, and Shanghai are all not looking the best, right? Um,
Eh.
so Chengdu coming out on top for China so far. I think that's all. Anything else you want to talk about within
Um,
this week?
Shot got two 4-0s,
Yeah.
which nobody was really surprised about.
No big news there. They look insane and fantastic. We shouldn't have to update you on that.
Yeah. Um Vancouver won, LA Valiant lost. Was again not super surprising.
Yep.
Um, yeah,
Any other teams we have failed to mention at all? I feel like we've touched like every team pretty much.
yeah, I think so.
Good. Then this is interesting. We get to move. Well, actually, we have an archives event.
It's true.
Um, that they're teasing. They're teasing a lot. I haven't looked at too much. I saw the Twitter video, but I haven't seen this article that you posted here from the Havana Sun newspaper. So Joe, if you want to go into this, go right ahead.
Yeah,
Be my guest
yeah.
here.
There's not tons we know, like you said. So far, they posted, a fake newspaper article page sort of thing, talking about uh, oh, no, I forget if it's a brewing company or a coffee company, but some sort of drink company based out of Havana. This newspaper article was talking about, and then they did post a video, with the official like Overwatch Archives, mission briefing, whatever, with a voiceover, including Soldier 76 and I guess or no, it wasn't Athena. It was I forget the name of the person who had identified themselves at the end of this, but um introducing the Overwatch Archives event. It's going to be called Storm Rising this year. Drops Tuesday, April 16th. That's probably after this show's recorded next week. Uh,
Yeah.
uh,
It's like exactly a week.
yeah. Assuming the video is accurate, you'll be able to play like the regular story mode is Tracer, Winston, Mercy, and Genji, which whatever they have to do for lore is fine. But I'm a little disappointed that Winston is the only uh, new character. I mean, Tracer and Mercy they could use in Uprising, and Genji was in Retribution. But uh,
Hmm.
that's nice, I guess. They're going after. Like we said, probably set in Havana. We don't actually know, and they're going after something related to Doomfist, and potentially trying to get dirt on him or his lawyer? Question mark. The Omnic Maximilian, which we've heard about before. Um, the story sounds pretty similar-ish to like a Retribution type storyline, but obviously it'll be on a new map, hopefully that we'll be able to get later, like Rialto, which turns a year old, like probably next month or
Yeah.
something.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, but yeah, it'll be cool. I kind of
Uh,
hope this won't happen, but I kind of hope the final boss is like is like actually is Doomfist, and like you have to play against like some like super overpowered Doomfist, just because that would be fun. But
yeah.
I doubt that's how it works.
I think that'd be cool. One of them had like Orissas, didn't they? Like
That
a
was
bunch of just
yeah,
Orissas
that
you're
was because that
facing.
was Uprising, and I feel like that was even before they announced Orisa too. I want to say.
Yeah, I think that was when they did announce Orissa, and you couldn't even play as Orissa yet.
Oh, there you go.
Maybe.
Yeah, because they had Bastion in there too.
Um,
But yeah,
yeah. Um, yeah, it seems like it will be Havana will be like the new map because in the newspaper article they have a picture that looks like it is in game that they just took.
that's true.
Uh,
Of like a spawn
so
room or something.
yeah, exactly. It looks like that'll probably be a new map, which I think is another. I think that's a nice place to have a new map. What happens when they run out of cities in the world? What if they make so many maps that they just run out of
I mean,
cities?
they've made up some cities already, so
Yeah, true, true. Um, they made up the moon.
yeah, yeah, exactly. We just go to new planets also.
Yeah. New planets. Overwatch discovers a new planet. Okay. Anything else you want to talk about this before we move on to stage 2, week 2?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm sure there'll be lots of teasers and drops here in between uh, now and next week. We'll just have to see.
Yes.
Maybe they'll do more new skins and stuff too.
That'd be nice. I would love some new skins. Yeah, stage 2, week 2. Of course, if you haven't listened to this before, me and Joe we predict matches every week. We predict 4 of them. So we usually like to start out by talking about some matches, just going over them briefly. That we won't be predicting. One of those is Vancouver versus Seoul, which is a stage playoff rematch. Of course, Vancouver won that one nice and easy. Seoul played it a little close on some maps, but I think everyone expected Vancouver to win that one. Um, I don't know if Seoul has too much of a chance of winning this one either. Vancouver just looks so darn good all the time.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so either. It's notable that it's happening, but I'm not sure the outcome's going to be any different.
Yeah, I'm sure if we would be predicting this, we would both choose Vancouver nice and easy. Um,
Same sort of
I
thing with this
think,
next match too.
yeah, I think sort of Battle for LA is happening later this week. It's the last game of the week. It's the first Battle of LA of only two Battles of LA that's happening this year. The second one is happening in Stage 4 when they play here in downtown Los Angeles, where I actually live, or it's actually 4 blocks away from me. So am excited for when that happens. But this is the first battle of it for LA this season. Hopefully the fans turn out, but the Los Angeles Valiant have sucked this year, so I expect them to turn out, but I think it'll be a little one-sided, maybe. Um, yeah, and then
Unfortunately, but that's how it goes.
yeah, we predict Philly matches pretty often, so we're not going to be predicting Philly matches this week. But I think they have two pretty significant matches against Toronto and then London. Both matches that, based off how they're performing lately, I think they're not favored in either, honestly. But I think they're both going to be very close, and hopefully they can pull. If they pull out at least one win, then it's a good week for Philly, if you ask me.
Yeah, I'd agree. Like you said, this match against London sort of it's the second time of the season and the last regular season match that they played London. Obviously, Philly won the first one, but yeah, like you said, it's is it looking more like London's got the advantage in this second head-to-head match?
Oh yeah, London's looking really good lately. I would definitely favor London a little bit more over Philly, but we'll see. If Philly can pull out that Toronto win, I think they'll have a pretty good week. They have a pretty tough stage, playing New York twice. So, and now they have to face London and Toronto. It's a hard stage for Philly. Um, but yeah, let's move on to what we're predicting here. Last week we went even because I won. You chose Philly over New York. I chose New York over Philly. That gave me an advantage there. But I chose Seoul over Gladiators, and you chose Gladiators. A fantastic prediction, Joe. Um,
Yeah,
and
I knew it in my head the whole time, obviously.
good. um, so we both went 3-1, and we broke even. I'm still 1 point ahead in the standings. Of course, you can go on Twitter to check out the standings. Joe makes some fantastic graphics on there. But let's move on to the 4 games we will be predicting this week. 3 of them are on Friday, so I'm tuning in all of Friday to watch my teams win. The first one is the first game of the day. It's the LA Valiant versus the Atlanta Reign, which I honestly think could be the LA Valiant's first win of the season, because Atlanta's struggling right now to find their identity ever since DeFran left. So this could be a win, Joe. Do you take the Valiant to get their first win here?
Yeah, I think if if LA Valiant was going to get their first win, I think this definitely could be it for sure. Um, that being said, I'm not quite convinced it's going to be that though. I'm going to pick Atlanta. Hopefully they've learned some things from this first week, and it definitely is going to be close. Actually, I think several of these are going to be pretty close this that we're predicting here. But yeah, I think while it's definitely one of the most likely matches it's ever been for a Valiant win, that I'm not quite convinced it's going to happen here.
Yeah. I am so tempted to pick it because I feel like it might happen, but yeah, I think both of these teams are going through struggles right now. Especially Valiant has just went through changes, coaching changes, and they're still getting used to that. Atlanta just went through changes; they're still getting used to that. And since both teams are going through changes, I do think Atlanta's a little more talented, even though they're both in down periods. And I'm going to go Atlanta as well. But it is tempting to go Valiant because it seems like a match that they could possibly win. But yeah, this should be a good week for Atlanta. They face Valiant and then Washington. So this will be a nice little bounce back, hopefully. Boston, Hangzhou, the next game on the docket, actually. Boston coming off of their third reverse sweep in a row. I would hope this isn't a reverse sweep because I think Boston should win this a little handily over here. So I'll spoil my pick here. Boston wins it for me. Do you think Hangzhou, they've been struggling lately? I feel like they're on a losing streak.
Yeah, I'd have to look at exactly what the detail is, but
I'll look it up. I'll look it up while you give me your pick.
yeah, I would tend to agree. Obviously Hangzhou, like their whole big thing was um, this star power of Gushue. They're in the main tank. And I think it is going to be a really cool main tank battle here, especially Boston running fusions like I assume they will. I don't know why they wouldn't, uh, but yeah, I don't know. Something for Hangzhou hasn't been working very much lately, and it's I'm not convinced it's going to change just off of one match, and especially off of this Boston team that's, like you said, doing really well. They're on a pretty good streak, I think, lately.
Yeah, Boston's on a nice little winning streak. Hangzhou's only on a 3-game losing streak, which is pretty significant, I guess, because there's only been 8 games so far for them. Um, so it's not looking good. Their last one was against the Gladiators, actually, which I don't like to look back at as a Gladiators fan. But that's not fun. But yeah, I think it's gonna be a nice win for Boston. Um, but yeah, I think Hangzhou, they've definitely shown potential, and at some point we're gonna predict someone beating them, and they're gonna say, "No, we're good now." Um, and I feel like that's gonna happen eventually because they got a lot of talent. Maybe it won't though, and that would be very sad. Next, Chengdu versus Shanghai, another Chinese matchup here. And Shanghai's got a tough schedule. You're gonna want to think that they're gonna want to pick up the win here, um, but Chengdu looking unstoppable so far. Um, can Shanghai be the first to stop them in this DPS meta?
Yeah, so I think, like I mentioned, all four of these matches are going to be pretty close. I think actually the Boston Hangzhou might be the least close out of the four. But yeah, I think you're right. Shanghai is like in a really good position to try to deny Chengdu the, I guess, 3-0 stage so far. Um, but will it happen is the question. We've seen. I really like. The more I watch them, I really like Jinmu and Bacon Jack over people like what Diding and DM and that sort of thing. I think the flexibility there in particular is really notable in the DPS because I'm sure we're going to see DPS in this match. Just because why wouldn't we?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I do want to give the edge to Chengdu here. I think at the risk of us having the same the same four picks this week, but it's something that we got to do. I think.
Yeah, I think we have to be some smart analysts here, Joe. Because I'm also going Chengdu. I just think it's the pick. And you do have some DPS favorite maps for Paris and
Oh
Junkertown.
yeah.
Paris second point's usually a little more goatsy, but first point is definitely a DPS fiesta out in here. A lot of Bastion. But yeah, you have some DPS heavy maps in here, so um, yeah, I would go Chengdu here. I think it's a nice, probably like a 3-1 win for Chengdu. Unfortunate for Shanghai that are going to have to continue to lose because I think everyone likes their team. We move on to our last, which is on Sunday. The first game on Sunday, Dallas Fuel versus the Paris Eternal. Dallas Fuel is going to be coming off of either a win or a loss to Toronto, which I think is going to be a good match there on Saturday. But I believe this is Paris. No, Paris faces Florida on Thursday, which should hopefully be a win for them. And if not, honestly, if Paris loses, I don't know if I could even take them in this match. But we don't know what's going to happen, Joe. Uh, who do you think's going to win this match?
Yeah, and I think, but like I said, another really close series. I've just said that every single time now, but I think the edge here has to go to Dallas, actually. Um, we can mention Paris had a weird week last week. Um, winning a decisive 4-0 and then also losing a pretty decisive 4-0. But Dallas also has been off since either week 4 or week 5 of stage 1. That they didn't play at all last week. Let's see, did they play? Yeah, they did play. They did play week 5, but they had a 3 week break now, including a bye in week 1, and that is going to be I think helpful for them coming into this matchup. That I think Dallas has got a bit of an edge.
Yeah. Uh, I I don't know. We haven't seen Dallas with Note yet, but I don't like how Paris has been performing lately. Are we gonna have? Is this gonna be the first week we choose these same
I don't
teams,
know.
or should
We
I?
try to avoid that when we pick the matches,
I
but
do think this. I do think this is gonna be. I do think this is gonna be a close one. I do think either one could win. So honestly, I'll just for the sake of having a different pick, I'm gonna go Paris here because I think both these teams are pretty even. Um, and I think I think by Sunday we'll know more about who's going to win this game because we'll finally see Dallas for the first time this stage against Toronto, which will be super helpful to figure this out. But based off, it's super hard to pick Paris based off how they've looked so far because they 4-0'd Guangzhou, but then they got 4-0'd.
eh.
Um, but Chengdu's pretty good.
Yes, it's okay. I've made some picks sometime just to be contrary, also. So
Yeah, I'll go Paris. I'll go Paris because I do think they can win. I'm not just doing this to be the opposite. I do think they could possibly win here against Dallas. It's gonna be a close one. And Joe, you tweeted out our MVPs. We didn't even mention our MVPs, did we,
it's true
on
that
this podcast?
it might have been a subtle reminder. Who knows? I don't know.
We pick MVPs of the week every week, and we failed to do that, I guess, this week until Joe came in and he saved the day. Um, Joe, who was your MVP of last week?
Yeah, so my MVP again, like I said, the match that I want people to go rewatch is Gladiators versus Seoul, and obviously that was a Gladiators win. So you kind of have to think. Sure enough, it is going to be a Gladiators player. My MVP for the week is Decay. Coming in, super young. This is his first season, and just really wrecking face. But both the matches Gladiators played against Seoul and against Shanghai, he got the player of the match both times from the talent. But yeah, he's just really good series on Zarya, especially because that's his go-to role for the Gladiators,
Mhm.
and pulling out really needed wins for this squad for sure.
Yeah, as a Gladiators fan, I love your choice, absolutely. And as sort of, I'm becoming sort of a Boston fan over here, and I think Color Hex, especially in their match against Toronto, was a huge reason why Boston is getting these reverse sweeps. And now that Color Hex is finally on these DPS heroes, I think he's been an okay Zarya, but on these DPS heroes, he really shines. He's looking a lot better, and he's looking like he has carry potential absolutely for this team. So my MVP is Color Hex. I think he absolutely was a key part of both of their reverse sweeps. I think RCK helped out a lot on the first one, but I think the second one it was a lot of Color Hex. Um, yeah, at Boston, I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do with this talent, and hopefully it doesn't involve trading them away. Hopefully it involves winning a championship with them, maybe.
That'd be crazy.
But yeah, that would be crazy, honestly. Um, yeah, we never end on our MVP of last week usually, but I guess that's what we're doing,
It
Joe.
works though. It works.
Yeah, it it does work. MVP is a nice little thing to build towards. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. If you guys want to follow us on social media, my personal social media account is JWGeorgeIV. Joe's is at Kirkpatrick_Inc. That's INC. We have a show Twitter account at On the Flank Show. You could tweet at us topics you would like us to talk about. You could also see all of Joe's fantastic graphics there on our weekly predictions and our MVPs every week. We also tweet out shows, obviously. We have an email on theflankshow@gmail.com if you want to email us any topics you'd like us to talk about. You are listening to this in one way. If you would like to listen to it in a different way, you could go to ontheflank.podbean.com. You can go to my YouTube channel, John George, which will be more easily found on my Twitter account. You can go to iTunes. You can go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Google Play. We are on all those podcast services. Thank you guys for listening, and enjoy Stage 2, Week 2. It's going to be another fantastic week.